Dude, my
I'm
cat
gonna
wants to
stop
say
rambling
hello.
now and let you talk.
My cat wants to say hello.
Hi, kitty! My dog's on the other side of the monitor snoring, so hopefully that's not coming through the mic. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the DLF Trade Show, a wonderfully awesome member of the DLF YouTube channel. I am your host, Russ Fisher at Dynasty Outhouse. He is your host, Addison Hayes at Hayes_, and we are here to take you on a winding, weaving journey of player values using the awesome tools at DLF, DynastyLeagueFootball.com. This morning, Ryan McDowell tweeted out, we have our first rookie Superflex ADP. So why not talk about last year's rookie quarterbacks? So this year's second-year quarterbacks. Our first quarterback we want to talk about, who comes in at QB9 on DLF ADP, and that is Trey Lance. 12-team Superflex tight end premium league. We have Trey Lance and Allen Robinson for T. Higgins and TJ Hawkinson. Trey Lance comes in at 564.5. Allen Robinson still holding strong at 110.2, which, don't get me wrong, is terrible for Allen Robinson, but great on what he did last season, that he's still worth over 100. And then T. Higgins on the other side, 375.2, and TJ Hawkinson, 264.8. Again, tight end premium, so that boosts Hawkinson up a little bit. So this comes out pretty evenly. Before I even talk about which side I personally prefer, if you're trading away a quarterback in a Superflex league and not getting a quarterback coming back to you, I feel like you need better value. You need to get more value in, and they didn't. So that makes me a little unhappy in the first place. And again, we have to sort of assume context in this. Like, maybe Lance is my QB 3 or 4. Like, I can live very easily without Trey Lance. I love T. Higgins and TJ Hawkinson. Like, I'm trying so hard not to let that bias my decision. I don't think I want to trade Trey Lance for those two players. And maybe it's just because there's no QB coming back. Or maybe it's just because because Trey Lance is such a ceiling, but such a non-floor that it's a little worrisome. I want more. That's what it comes down. I love, and don't get me wrong, I'm really not even accounting Allen Robinson in this. You know, that's nice. Sure, cool. You got a wide receiver to plug in, hopefully, when he goes to a new place and actually tries to play football this year. But I want a little more. I want some. If I'm not getting a quarterback, I don't know what I want. That's the problem. And again, these are two players I love.
Yeah.
It still feels wrong. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I'm on the Trey Lance side. And basically the reasoning for me is there's no quarterback coming back. So that's in a super flex, like that's hard. Even if Trey Lance is like somehow your QB4 and you just like kind of lucked into him last year at like the 103, 104, 105, somewhere in there, and you've just been sitting on him, but you have really good assets, like top 10 quarterbacks still as your QBs 1 through 3. I still don't know if I could do this, just because I don't think this is Trey Lance's value right now. I know we've mentioned before that if we're not counting Allen Robinson, in 2-for-1 trades, you need the 2 to be, an overpay on the 1. Otherwise, you just want the better asset, right?
Yep.
If you take away the tight end premium, like I did this first and it came up at the trade without the tight end premium in it. And this was actually like it was actually closer to 700 because Trey Lance got bumped up a little bit in non-tight end premium, and then Hawkinson dropped back down, right?
Yeah.
So it was actually like a difference of over 100, which is kind of pretty significant for a 2-for-1 deal, which basically mitigates Allen Robinson. So that, like we said, like that's not overpaying in the 2-for-1. And then, like T. Higgins is the wide receiver 2 for his team. We both love him. You love him way more than I do, obviously, because you have him on your wall. But T. Higgins is the wide receiver 2 for his own team. TJ Hawkinson, I also love TJ Hawkinson. He is the type of tight end that would benefit more from a tight end premium. But 1.5 tight end premium just isn't enough for me. Like, that's not a significant difference from just one tight end premium, just one PPR. Not to mention the fact that Hawkinson, potentially has more weapons coming in that could steal volume away from him moving forward. You still have Amon-Ra St. Brown and DeAndre Swift, and there's just a lot of stuff going on with both of those that you could just take the insulated value of Trey Lance. And I just, like you said, I just want more in a super flex for a top 10 quarterback.
It's really funny. In my head, something went like bing, and I figured out what it was, and then you said it out loud. This is a trade for Trey Lance during last season. This is what a trade for Trey Lance would have looked like the week before your fantasy championships. If Lance is my QB4 and I don't care about getting a QB back, I would be thrilled to walk out of there with those two. On the analyzer, it said that Lance's ADP was 18. I have the smallest of small sample sizes. I am doing one of the DLF mock drafts in Superflex for their new February ADP.
He is not 18.
12.
Yeah.
He was, I wish it listed like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The QB 7. Which, first of all, that breaks my brain. That's high. Mm-hmm. So the fact that we haven't seen anything out of him, and he's this high, it's before free agency, it's before the draft. San Francisco still has the ability to make their offense better, which rising tide raises all ships, in which case, if that offense gets better, Lance's ADP will get even better. And if Kyler Murray scrubs the Cardinals from his Instagram again somehow, he'll fall below Lance because he was taking just a couple of picks before him. So I feel like, while I agree, all value in the non-point scoring season is 1000% hypothetical, and that's why I love it, because there is no solid value. Points aren't being scored, which leaves hype as such a big part of the process, and Lance is there. I don't think this is Lance's hype price, because while I love T. Higgins, and technically in January, he was the wide receiver 11, but his value isn't all that high. And Hawkinson, if it's not one of the top 3 or 4 tight ends, it just doesn't matter. And enough people are worried about Hawkinson's injuries, and like you said, they need to rebuild that entire team. So if they spend one offseason, bring in a rookie quarterback, another wide receiver, bring a wide receiver in on free agency, they all of a sudden have a pretty full offense with a rookie operating it. That's a little worrisome.
Or Jared Goff.
I'm just pushing that out of my mind. All right, but we've been talking about this first trade for a while, so let's move on to the next one. This one is 12-team Superflex. Oh, yeah, I see it. Lance jumps up to 585.5. He gets a nice 20-point boost. Trey Lance, the 112, and Odell Beckham Jr. for Lamar Jackson and Kadarius Toney. This comes in with a total of 860.9 on the Lance side, and Lamar and Kadarius for 959.9. There was a small package adjustment, about 30 points, so even that would push it up to about 890. I love the idea of using Lance's hype to go pivot to Lamar Jackson plus. And especially the 112 in not the deepest draft, it's really, I live in that round the corner wide receiver area. That's, T. Higgins, Michael Pittman, Jerry Jeudy, that's where all of those guys are. Even going back into the year, AJ Brown, DK Metcalf, they were all end of the first, beginning of the second. And that's what this draft is. This draft is 5 or 6 top end players. And then you're going to get 12 to 15 wide receivers that are all in the same range. And I love it. But the one, which just means one pick in the middle of that tier is super not valuable. You want to be at the top, you want to be at the bottom. You want to be at the top to pick your guy. You want to be at the bottom to say, last pick of this tier, someone won it, you got to pay up for it. But the 112 is just there. So if I could use that, and Odell Beckham, so sad that he got hurt, tore his ACL in the Super Bowl. Literally, heartbroken for that man. He got a Super Bowl ring, so it wasn't a complete loss, but it just sucks that he found his place. He was doing really well in the Super Bowl, no less. And then, so like, honestly, I'm not even factoring that he's worth more than Kadarius Toney at this point in the analyzer.
Yeah.
Swipe them off the board because honestly, especially with the package adjustment, they equal out. So this is Lance in the 112 for Lamar. I almost said Lamarcus. That is not a name. Maybe it is. It's not this guy's name though. So I'm pretty easily on the Lamar Jackson because we know Lamar. He is 25 years old, so it's not like we're worried about his age. He is very good in a very good situation that is only starting to pass more and more. I ran out of fingers and things to say, so that's I'm sticking with my Lamar take, and like pretty easily because you have to get a very large percentage of value out of Lance in the future for this to work the other way around. Like Lance's hype value is so high, he needs to meet those expectations to keep his value that high to stay where the 112 is the difference between him and Lamar.
No, I totally agree. Because the first thing I thought of when I saw this was I was like, man, Tony is below Odell Beckham. But then I remember that this is January ADP, which was probably taken right around or before the Super Bowl. So this is before ACL injury.
Well before the Super Bowl, yeah.
Odell Beckham Jr. is still 29 years old, but he will be turning 30. So once we see the number 30, that's going to change. The ACL changes a lot. So I would definitely take Kadarius Toney over Odell Beckham Jr. I would have done that before the ACL injury. He could have been totally fine, and I would have done that coming into 2022 anyway. So like you said, Trey Lance for the 112 and Lamar Jackson. I absolutely love this trade to go get Lamar Jackson or go get into that top tier of known stud quarterbacks, right? Because you can believe in Trey Lance and you can believe that he is going to be the next Lamar Jackson or the next like Kyler Murray type of production, which is great for fantasy football. But if you want to hedge your bet and say that might not necessarily happen, this is the best way I think to do that because you're giving up Lance and his potential. And the 112, which like you said, is going to be in the middle of a giant wide receiver tier or is going to be like the RB 4 or 5 in this class, which could be very similar to 2021 where that RB 4 or 5 is like a Trey Sermon, Michael Carter level player, like a round 3 type of guy that you might not necessarily want. So I'm all for packaging both of those and turning them into Lamar Jackson, or you could replace Lamar with, I feel like Dak Prescott. You could probably do this as well with, I would do it for Kyler Murray. People are souring on Kyler. You could probably do this for Kyler Murray just because of all his shenanigans that he's doing. I don't think you could do this for Burrow.
I think once you hit Burrow, Herbert,
Allen, and Mahomes, it's gone.
Think about what has to happen right now. Like I said, Trey Lance in my one draft. So again, super small sample size, but it is Mahomes, Herbert, Allen, Burrow, Jackson, Murray, Lance. How can Lance's value go up? He has to do something to make him better, more valuable. Better is completely the wrong word. More valuable than Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, or Patrick Mahomes.
He has to become them, basically.
Yeah, and then hope that the fact that he's 2-3 years younger pushes him up a little bit.
Yeah.
And the thing is, the oldest of these guys is Mahomes, who's like, what, 26 maybe?
6.
Yeah, so like he's not going anywhere for the next 10 or so years. But like it's really tough when you have these guys that you want to trade for their upside, but the problem is their value might be peaked unless they not only hit but explode. Mm-hmm. And I know we're saying this during the Trey Lance talk, but I'm not even just aiming this directly at him. It's with anyone else outside of those top guys. It's like Dak might be a sunk cost at this point because his value can't go higher. He's older than everyone else, even though he's like 27 or 28. Mm-hmm. But how many great seasons, not good seasons, top 3 or 4 quarterback seasons would Dak Prescott have to get himself above that Kyler Murray, Lamar Jackson line? 2 or 3.
And by Josh Allen has been the quarterback 1 for the last 2 years and is still not the QB1 in Dynasty.
Exactly. So it's really tough for these quarterbacks right now.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's good or bad. Honestly, I think it's good for trading because that concrete ceiling just means like, look, man, this guy's never going to go higher than this. So let me trade you for that value. And then you got to hope that they pull that Josh Allen where they're scoring like the QB1, but still valued at the QB3 for why? Because he had a bad rookie and sophomore year and he's in year 4 or 5 now, and that shouldn't matter anymore. We have one more. Whoa. We have
I want to get your opinion on this.
We have a quarterback trade. I'm not even going to call it a Trey Lance trade. Team A, Trey Lance, Mac Jones, and the 110 for Justin Herbert and poor Kyle Trask. Kyle Trask coming in at 9 points.
You're starting quarterback for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers right now. 9 points.
Okay, so Trey Lance, Mac Jones, and the 110 come in. Let's leave the package adjustment in. Come in at 1,121.3. Justin Herbert and Kyle Trask, 928.1. Like we've been saying this entire time, this looks like the trade that it needs to look like. You need to overpay to go get that bigger asset, the better player, the best player in the trade. I can't imagine sending Justin Herbert away for these two guys.
I saw this and I thought, man, this is really interesting. I wanted to do the other two as well, so we don't need to spend a whole lot of time on this third one. But I was like, could you trade Justin Herbert and break him down into Lance and Jones? And I'm just going to assume that the 110 is probably just a wide receiver at that point.
Yeah, probably. I mean, we will have 3 or 4. I think Ryan said that there were 4 quarterbacks in the first round. So one of them might fall to the 110 area, but it's probably not going to be someone we're thrilled about.
Well, let me tell you, in the new Superflex ADP, the rookie ADP from this morning, the 110 is Kenneth Walker. And then right after him is Jameson Williams, Chris Olave, and David Bell. So that's...
Okay, so yeah, you're in that tier. You're in that second tier of players.
For what? Yeah.
Okay, so
the 4 quarterbacks are gone.
Okay. I need one of those QBs to someone I feel better about. Like, I don't care about age. If you switched out Lance with Dak Prescott, I would do it.
I think my problem is Mac. And that's not saying that he's a bad quarterback. I just, like, he is, like, baseline.
There's no ceiling.
Could that be Cousins? Could that be Derek Carr? Like, at least both those guys are capable of doing 304.
See,
I don't know if Mac Jones is capable of doing that.
I would love it if it were Cousins, and then we could value up that 110 to a better asset, because I think there should be a difference between Mac Jones and Cousins. That's his name, because I completely just blanked on it. Even though they didn't go. Yeah, they went like a round and a half apart again, one draft. But that's so rough. Like I've seen these trades happen in leagues I'm in on the Trade Finder and other trade shows, and it's just, I don't know how I could feel comfortable selling a stud quarterback for 2 quarterbacks and feel good about it. I understand you probably do this because you need to destroy your team. Like, you have nothing except Justin Herbert on your team.
Right.
So it's a super flex league. Give me 2 young quarterbacks, and that's great. Don't get me wrong. Like, it's what you have to do. But I don't know if I could do it at once. I don't know if I have the wherewithal to just send Herbert away and get 2 guys I don't necessarily feel great about. Unless you have a in your league that's a Trey Lance guy or a Mac Jones guy. Because if then I can turn one of those 2 into something I feel better about.
If you could do Justin Herbert, break them down into these 3 picks, and then go back to the previous trade Trey Lance and the 110 for Lamar Jackson.
Exactly.
Now you dropped. I would still say Justin Herbert and Lamar Jackson to me are in the same tier. I would take Justin Herbert over Lamar Jackson, I think. And I think there are probably other people that would do the opposite. But that's what makes him in the same tier. But if you can drop down within the same tier and pick up Mac Jones, bam, we're there.
Brilliant. Yes. It can't get better than that on the Trey Lance talk. So we're going to move on to one of my favorites in Justin Fields, who is QB 11. In 12-team Superflex, our first trade, I don't like it, is Justin Fields, who comes in at 591.8, a 24 second and 23 third Weird. For Javonte Williams and a 24 fourth. Weird. Okay. So we get the wonderful little pop-up warning of caution. Team A is giving up the highest valued asset and the most pieces in the deal. Man, Javonte is just overvalued at this point. If this trade is happening, like this is a combination undervaluing Fields and overvaluing Javonte. Like I always made the joke that he's gonna walk backwards into running back 5 or 7. He's like running back 3 at this point. Melvin Gordon is technically for the moment still there, but even if he's not, that's putting a lot of faith. Like usually, if anything, the running back position correlates to scoring a little bit. Like CMC was the one forever because of the way he scored. Saquon held on to those higher ranking numbers even while getting hurt every once in a while because we've seen him be the RB1. Same thing with Kamara. Whether he had a good season or not, he held on to a top 5 running back spot because we've seen him destroy the league. They all aged out or injured themselves out of the top, and then all of a sudden there's nowhere else to go except to Javonte Williams because he's young, he did pretty well, and we like the player. So that's why I would do this if I had Javonte Williams. We were talking before about not getting a quarterback coming back to you, so I need a huge overpayment, and that's not this because the total is 701.8 to 537.4. To me, I don't, even if Fields is my QB6, I don't see a reason to do this.
Yeah, this is a massive round of applause for a trade high on Javonte Williams.
Yup.
That's what this is, because not only did you go from Javonte to a player that I feel like is consensusly ranked above Javonte Williams in Superflex in Justin Fields, you got that quarterback. You didn't have to send a quarterback back to do that. And somehow, even though it's in 2024, you got a second round pick on top of the better asset. You know, if that second is on the wrong side, if you swap that second, this trade goes from 700 to 537 to 630 to 500 or 610. Like that's like a way closer trade if you look at it that way. If that second is just on the Javonte side.
Very fair point.
So, yeah, this is a really good job on selling high on Javonte Williams on a trade that I feel like is really hard to do because people aren't willing to spend that price to get Javonte, or the people that have Javonte aren't willing to sell high on him. But this is a sell high, and it should be viewed as a sell high on Javonte. So good job.
Yeah, definitely. This next one is super interesting. I love these trades because they're really hard to like nail down how you feel about it.
This one's easy.
Justin Fields and Christian Kirk for Chris Godwin and Kirk Cousins. So this is one of those trades where you have two people trading, two players of same positions, 2 quarterbacks, 2 wide receivers, and you're just flipping which the more valuable is. So this is a more expensive quarterback and cheaper wide receiver for a more expensive wide receiver and a cheaper quarterback. So it really, I'm going to pick the Justin Fields side.
Oh, what?
And I'm going to tell you why I'm wrong.
Okay.
I love Chris Godwin, Penn State pass catchers, baby. Woot woot. Kirk Cousins is the definition of good quarterback with some upside. Yeah. I wish I felt safer about his situation at the moment because we got some talk about Osweiler dealing him away. So Kirk Cousins being in a little iffy situation, Chris Godwin just hurting himself, so he's going to be missing a lot of this year. Justin Fields, I believe, is awesome. I'm a big fan. Christian Kirk, I've always been a fan of the player. And he's shown enough times that when you use him, he can do well. The problem with the Arizona offense is if you're not DeAndre Hopkins, you're going to fall victim to whoever Kyler feels like throwing to at the time. It's a very open offense. It is not designed for any player specifically. It's just that DeAndre Hopkins is so good, he's going to get the most targets. It's sort of made to have interchangeable players. Christian Kirk was in that spot this time. Next time it'll be Rondale Moore. Next time it'll be AJ Green, and he'll miss the ball because he's still too slow at this point in his career. Sorry, AJ Green, I love you. You were great. We're great. So 2 things can happen because Christian Kirk is a free agent. They can pay him in which case money talks and they will probably use him a little bit more, or another team is going to pay him and they will actually use him because they paid him to be there. And 3, he kind of gets to choose where he wants to go, and hopefully he chooses a good team as opposed to just following the money. Just look at Allen Robinson. Don't chase the money. go to a team you want to play on. So that, like, honestly, that's really why I do it. They're 2 younger players, even though Kirk and Godwin are the same age. And also Godwin being a free agent on top of the injury. I think it's wrong. I think two people named Kirk. That made it difficult for me for a second. I think the Kirk Cousins and Chris Godwin side is the right side to choose. I'm letting my bias show right out into the open. And I'm taking the field side anyway.
Okay, so I'm taking the Godwin Cousins side because, like you said, we're trading player positions across the way, and you're just swapping which one's more valuable. To me, the difference between Cousins and Fields to me is not the difference between Godwin and Christian Kirk. I would far and away rather have Chris Godwin than Christian Kirk.
Yes.
And to me, if you told me that Justin Fields was like the QB 8 next year and Kirk Cousins was the QB 11 or 12, I'd be like, that's probably accurate. But the difference between Fields and Cousins production wise is probably not that big of difference, especially on a point per game basis. So
you are absolutely correct. You are absolutely correct.
Then I'll just hope the Cousins either stays with the Vikings for for a couple more years, or maybe he goes to the Colts or Washington and makes Terry McLaurin a thing or something. I don't know. I still think he'll be fine.
Gotta be honest.
Yeah.
Oh man, he can't go back to Washington. That would be weird.
That would be weird. But anyway, that was the first thing I thought of.
The real reason, regardless of what happens with Kirk Cousins, is he's gonna start.
Yeah.
And that's all you need out of Kirk Cousins. He's good enough to inflate any team enough for him to score well.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there are no teams that I could think of that would be so bad that it would hurt Kirk Cousins' production that badly. It helps to have Justin Jefferson. Yeah, but they're also rebuilding. Oh yeah, so maybe it would be okay. There's no team but the Texans that I can think of that it would really just hurt him that bad. Though, I mean, man, even Davis Mills was doing pretty well towards the end. Let's move on to the generational talent, the best QB prospect we've seen since Andrew Luck, since Peyton Manning, and who is the QB 13 at this point in Trevor Lawrence. I was very interested in this one. Mm-hmm. When Addison brought up to me, let's talk about QBs, Lawrence was like the first name that popped in my head because I want to kind of see the world's idea of what we do with a guy who had that label that just didn't look good. And we can explain a lot of it away. Like, all you have to, 2 words. Well, 4-ish. Urban Meyer, am I right? Like, the way I type it out, that's, am I right?
Urban
like 1
Meyer,
word.
Jacksonville Jaguars.
Like, 3 words. Urban Meyer, am I right? Like, that was so bad. And the thing is, like, it can't get worse than that. 12-team Superflex, a trade of Trevor Lawrence for Tua and Carson Wentz. That's interesting. Trevor comes in at 661.3. Tua comes in 401.4. Carson Wentz 192.5 for a total of 564.5 after a small package adjustment. Taking that away, it sort of almost brings them up to 600. So this is still Trevor Lawrence by himself as being more valuable. I love Tua, and their values are probably... No, I'm overvaluing Tua in my head. That is actually probably a good value for Tua. The only reason I don't... Okay, let me frame this in 2 ways. If I can use Tua to get to Trevor Lawrence and only have to give up Carson Wentz, who no one likes to start anyway, I would do it, even though I love Tua. Because I do believe in the talent of Trevor Lawrence, and I do believe that it will be hard to be as bad as it was last season for him. I think I want Trevor Lawrence in this, and I think it might be pretty easily, but I can't. My Tua love is stopping me from like slamming my hand on the table and saying, give me Lawrence.
Let me say my hot take here for this one that you apparently are not bold enough to say. I would rather have Tua Tagovailoa than Trevor Lawrence in Dynasty. I said it. There. I did it, Russ. I said it. I would rather have Tua Tagovailoa than Trevor Lawrence in Dynasty.
Wow. Okay, I need you to expand.
Let me explain why.
Well,
okay,
I need like a fan. Like,
so age, they're like a year apart. That doesn't really matter.
23 and 22, we're not gonna. Yeah, that
doesn't matter. Trevor Lawrence. Oh, I hit the other one that doesn't really matter. They were both top 5, 6. Tua was 5, 6. Top 6 picks, somewhere in there, maybe top 5. I don't remember if Tua or Herbert was first.
Tua.
So they both have the same pedigree. Like, this isn't like a Jalen Hurts second round pick type of situation.
Yep.
Trevor Lawrence, while a better prospect, has a lot of things stacked up against him in the NFL. Like, he's severely behind the 8 ball. He's playing for the Jacksonville Jaguars, who currently their best wide receiver is a debate between Marvin Jones and Laviska Shenault. And I don't know if that changes. So that is something that needs to change.
Mm-hmm.
They have Doug Peterson, who I think is going to do well for Trevor Lawrence. He helped make Carson Wentz kind of a thing in Philly with his MVP-ish kind of season, the year they won the Super Bowl before he got hurt. So I think Doug Peterson is stable. It's a lot of stability that he doesn't have with Urban Meyer. So I think that is a benefit. But it's now the one thing that I hate about quarterbacks, especially with rookie quarterbacks as they progress through their career, is lack of coaching stability. That's like what killed Baker Mayfield, because he had like a new coach and offensive coordinator every year for like 4 years. I don't think that happens with Trevor Lawrence, but it's just going from Urban to their interim head coach at the end of the year to now Doug Peterson, and then maybe Doug Peterson is there for 2 years and then he has somebody else. You know, their offensive line still sucks. Their defense still sucks. The Jaguars themselves as a team still suck. Trevor Lawrence looked horrible all rookie year. Like, there was not a glimmer of hope anywhere that I saw from Trevor Lawrence, from things that I saw from Justin Fields, who was a top 10 quarterback from like the last 6 or 7 games of the year, from Trey Lance, who had like 250-2 in his one start for Jimmy Garoppolo, including like a 60-yard touchdown pass to Deebo Samuel. Mac Jones looked good and looked like a perennial starter, like a Matt Ryan type of quarterback in the NFL. Davis Mills had more touchdowns in like 4 games in the last 6 weeks of the season than Trevor Lawrence had all year on the Houston Texans, with only Brandon Cooks to throw to. He had multiple 3+ touchdown games. Davis Mills, who was drafted in the 2nd round. So there was nothing for Trevor Lawrence that I saw that made me think, wow, this guy doesn't have it right now and his situation sucks, but moving forward, it might get better. I didn't see any of that with Trevor Lawrence. And I don't want it. You can't start him ever. I don't see whenever you would ever feel comfortable, or I was going to say confident and comfortable, and I mixed the two.
I heard that and I knew what you meant, which is the better part.
Confident and comfortable starting Trevor Lawrence like ever until we actually see him do it and do it consistently. Tua, on the other hand, Tua is in the category with Kirk Cousins and Derek Carr for me, where he is a baseline quarterback, but when he has good matchups, they're pretty predictable on when he could have a 303 type of game. You know, like, he plays the Jets twice a year. He has other opportunities against other bad defenses to be able to take advantage of bad teams and doing well for fantasy. So that's pretty predictable. He has a new head coach as well, who I think is only going to make things better for the offense coming from San Francisco. Yep. He has Jalen Waddle, who is by far way better, like 10, not even on the same planet as any wide receiver that the Jacksonville Jaguars have. And then they also have the opportunity to potentially improve their offense as well, just like the Jaguars. But I trust the Miami Dolphins to do that a little bit better. And even if they don't, they still have Devontae Parker, who's fine, still better than anybody on the Jaguars. Hopefully they re-sign Mike Gesicki, which I think will happen. Hopefully, although I've seen talks that he might not, because he doesn't block, and they want a blocking tight end like a Kittle from San Fran, you know, that kind of thing. But then I have way more trust in Tua and the Dolphins' direction with their new regime and scheme than I do Trevor Lawrence in his direction under Peterson and his new regime and scheme and everything like that. So all of that, I'd rather have Tua over Trevor Lawrence in Dynasty. And then you give me Carson Wentz, just the flyer on another guy who, kind of like what we said with Kirk Cousins, is he might not be the starter for his team next year or the year after, but he is a starter in the NFL, and he should go somewhere to be a starter.
He'll always have that, like, Jameis Winston, like, anything, slightest thing goes wrong, he'll be the starter of that team that he's the backup for. Yeah, it's a nice piece to have.
I don't think he's going to get Andy Dalton or Mitch Trubisky's, where he's like forced to sit behind somebody for a year and then sign somewhere else as a starter. I think wherever he goes from here on out, he will be the starter. And as your QB3, QB4, a start in the NFL, who actually did pretty well for fantasy football, like, you know, you could do a lot worse with that. So, to a side, money.
Whew. I'm gonna after we're done recording, I'm not gonna do it now because I know you're gonna have a meeting coming up and we still got a lot more to talk about. But I'm gonna sit and reflect. I'm gonna pull the thinker pose and just for a while.
Oh, that was good. I'm throwing that on Twitter and I'm gonna get roasted for it, and I'm so ready for it.
There you go. This next trade is super interesting. This is, I think, like a getting out, like someone who agrees with you, because this next trade is Trevor Lawrence for the 101, 111. What is with all the, like, I get it, we just got the 24 picks, but come on, the 101, the 111, and a 24 second. Tua comes in at 660. Tua, you got me thinking about Tua all day now, man. Trevor Lawrence comes in at 661.3, and the 101 itself comes in at 625. So they're pretty close on their own. But add the 111 at 213.7 and the 24 second at 77.1. Package adjustment kind of warranted for 3 picks for 1 player. So we'll give it 868.2. As we've been saying, you should be overpaying in value-wise to go get a player that is rated higher than whatever you're giving up. But the thing is, this person had Trevor Lawrence on the team, whether he took him one-on-one in the rookie draft, whether he traded for him, whether he got him in a startup. And they pretty much said, nope, I don't believe. Let me at least get my cost back. And since the 101 in 2021 was worth more than the 101 in 2022, you get a little on top of the 101. And that's exactly, to me, what this is. Like, they got their cost back from getting Trevor Lawrence. I don't hate it. I don't like it. I don't think I would take these picks for Trevor Lawrence because I think I could do something better with it.
Okay.
If I liked Malik Willis more, who seems like will be the 101, or if there was another quarterback I felt better about taking at the 101, maybe I would do it. But there's not enough in this class to make me happy enough, and enough that I think I could spin that 101 for, to make me want to move Trevor Lawrence for this, because I think you could do more with Trevor Lawrence.
Would you like my hot take? I would rather have the 1.01 in 2022 than Trevor Lawrence in Dynasty.
Oh, stop.
So I would rather have the 1.01, and then you're giving me another first, and
would
2 years from now, what, a second round pick in a couple years.
Are you saying you would rather have the trade asset of the 101, or are you saying Malik Willis, who right now is the 101?
That's a good question.
Like, is it a trade value thing that makes you want the other side with the 101, or just no, forget the other side. Forget sides. Just you said 101 over Trevor. So is it the ability and openness to be able to trade the 101 versus having to find someone who likes Trevor Lawrence to trade him? Is that what it is? Or you just think you can get a player you'll like more with that pick?
It's a little bit of both. And honestly, it's the benefit of having both of them in that 1.01, right? Because the 1.01 is worth more than any rookie in this class as of right now, just because it is the possibility to be whoever you want, right?
Pick is always worth more than the player. Yeah,
exactly. So there's that aspect of the unknown. You find somebody who is in love with one of these rookies, maybe after the draft. You hold this 101 post draft, and we get like a Malik Willis to the Pittsburgh Steelers type of situation, where he's going to come in and immediately be the starter. And with his potential and upside with the team that he's on and his weapons, that could be like a magnificent situation where, in that situation, honestly, I would rather have Malik Willis than Trevor Lawrence. Like, I would hit the reset button on Lawrence to go for that, okay. Which I think is kind of a Trey Lance kind of situation. But if you don't feel that way, somebody else in your league probably does, and you have that trade value of the 1.01. So to me, it is a little bit of both of them, in where you have the 1.01, which is probably the most coveted asset in every single year, like in Dynasty, basically, is whoever holds that 101 has the golden ticket for that year's class. So you have that you can use as a trade chip to where I could move to somebody better than Trevor Lawrence. And like you said, I don't need to find somebody who likes Trevor Lawrence. I just need to find somebody who likes a rookie at the 1.01. Yeah. And then, but then there's also that possibility of maybe one of the quarterbacks finds a fantastic situation. And I want to hit the reset button on quarterback with Trevor Lawrence and move to Malik Willis, move to Matt Corral if he goes to a fantastic landing spot, move to Sam Howell or something like that. It's probably not a realistic 101, but you can make that choice and actually draft a player as well with that 1.01 pick. And then you get the 111, you get another pick 10 picks later, and a second round pick in a couple years as well. So that's why I just want that whole entire side. But yes, I would rather have the 1.01 for the benefits of everything that I mentioned over Trevor Lawrence himself.
This turned into a very good show. I've learned a lot from you today. I love it. Speaking of things I love, it's time for a horrible trade. 12-team Superflex. This trade is Trevor Lawrence, the 204, and Alex Collins for Justin Herbert. It should take more than that to get up to Justin Herbert. That's all I'm going to say. And it's really funny because if we saw this trade before the 21 season, it would have still been off, but it wouldn't be nearly as bad as it looks right now. Because, man, Lawrence was coming in at like the 107 in startups. But, how do you do that? Like, Justin Herbert is 1 year older.
This was only done a month ago, too.
Yeah.
This is...
Like, you can't give me age. You can't give me the thing I said before where your team is terrible and all you have is Justin Herbert, so you need to break him down, because it's not like you're doing anything with the 204 and Alex Collins. This is someone who thought Trevor Lawrence is the QB1, is going to be the QB1 next season, and I'm going to pay whatever I have to get him, and that ended up being Justin Herbert.
Yeah. You hope that Trevor Lawrence is Justin Herbert. That's, yeah.
But also, among the many, many points you made, doesn't have the offense, doesn't have the offensive coach, doesn't have wide receivers.
They have a lot to fix, and it is not all going to be fixed in 1 year
back,
or 2 years or 3 years. They have a lot to address.
That is rough. Like, this is definitely something I would have seen where Justin Herbert just did the best he's ever going to do. So I'm going to get rid of him, and I'm going to get the real QB1 coming in, Trevor Lawrence. Like, this is something that should have happened like 10 months ago.
Yeah.
Like April or May, after the draft. So like May and June of last year.
Yeah. Yeah. And let me be fair here. This is not my Trevor Lawrence hatred that you might think that I hate Trevor Lawrence based on the last two trades. This would be a horrible trade if you replaced it with Fields or Lance. It would be better if it was Lance, but I still would much rather have Justin Herbert. Like we mentioned before, we would take Herbert over Lance in the 112. So Lance in the 2.04, So yeah, if this was Justin Fields in the 2.04 and Alex Collins for Herbert, still a bad trade. If it's Lance, the 204 and Collins for Justin Herbert, still a bad trade. This is no, this ain't it.
All right, why don't you lead us into our little addendum that we're doing here?
All right, so it's been a hot minute since we did one of these, and we had a listener reach out to me on Twitter, which I then shared with Russ, Curtis. So thank you, Curtis, for this idea for the addendum that we're doing here, and we actually have another one that we're planning on to do here soon as well from Curtis too. But this one, which I thought was a good addendum to talk about when talking about quarterbacks and superflex, he brought up that he is in a league where half of the people in the league are open to trading and the other half are just kind of completely closed off. Either they're not really that active or they're just not really, they're not all about that life, you know? So it makes it hard for him to trade for, he mentioned specifically running backs because of how, you know, what a commodity they are in Dynasty. But I feel like in Superflex leagues where quarterbacks like this are the most valuable, that kind of same situation can play in as well. Because if you don't have quarterbacks, the only way to acquire them post startup draft is either by drafting them or trading for them. Yeah. And if half of your league is out on wanting to trade for them, then you're screwed down to just potentially either finding a lucky partner with another half of the league, yeah, or drafting one, which if you move your first around or try to be active in that regard, that might also be kind of hard. So what he wanted to know and what he kind of wanted us to talk through was ways to work around an inactive, or maybe not inactive, but a low trade volume league, to where you might not have the benefit of saying, if I make this move now, I can make this other move later on down the road. And you might actually have to value your starting lineup a little bit more during the offseason. Yes. You might have to value not making moves for certain players, you know, just because they're sell highs or buy lows right now. You know, all that other stuff kind of comes into play because your league is not super active with trading. So how do you feel about that, Russ?
Well, I mean, you just answered half of the question in your little summation. I've always, every so often, I get the question, how can I make my league more active? What can I do? Can I make, you cannot force activity. It just doesn't work. You can't, you have to send a trade offer every this amount of days. It's a waste of time because people will start swapping 5th round picks. It's, you know, complete and utter waste of time. So it's really, 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 really tough to force it to happen. The best way you can make it happen is by doing it and doing it well, or doing it really badly. If you are willing to take a hit on a couple of trades, like go trade for a guy you like, but make it a decent value loss, but you're still happy about it, that might make other people want to send you more offers. Of course, yeah, you tell them I'm not dumb, I just wanted that guy, but still it spurs action. And as a commissioner, I've done that a lot when leagues got stale. Like, because I know in the leagues I'm in, even if they get stale or we go a couple of weeks, couple of months even without a trade, I know it'll happen eventually. So I'll make a bad trade on purpose for once, you know, and that will spark other people because like, oh, he got a good deal. Maybe I should offer this to that guy and see if I can get a good deal. More stuff. Action brings action. Other than that, like there's nothing you could do. It's weird, but you need to care about your starting lineup in February, because if you can't guarantee to make 5 to 10 trades in an off season, you could get very screwed in the end by not having the right amount of players in the right positions. So it's tough to trade away a running back without getting one back. And I mean, that's not fun. And to me, you should leave. But again, very privileged. And yeah, you can't do that trade we talked about before where it was like Herbert for Lance and Mac Jones and a pick or something like that. Like, and we talked about how great that trade would be only if you pushed it further down the hill. Mm-hmm. You can't do those trades because you can get caught and you can maybe not ruin your team, but significantly hurt them. It comes with being more careful. It comes with making sure you're making the right deals at the right time. It's just not fun. Everything else just kind of sounds boring in my head. And I'm sorry, please, I will help you try and find a better league if this is you. But those are the answers I could think of. Like, try and change it for the better, which you can't force. You just need to put yourself out there. And if not, just do the best you can.
Yeah. So you brought up one thing that I want to highlight as well, or at least like throw back to you in a question, because this is actually something that Curtis brought up. He said he would love to hear about, best times to offer trades, like peak times during the year, in season, off season, when to try to make those moves? When would you be looking to make moves if you were in a league like that?
I mean, I think it's the obvious landmarks, right? I mean, start where we kind of just were, right after the season, right after the Super Bowl, combine, NFL draft, free agency opens. Like anytime something happens in the NFL,
it gets people thinking about the NFL,
especially in the non-point scoring season where we're so thirsty. We need something that will change value for someone, and then we absolutely overvalue all of it because of how much we want it to, how much we are just starving for information, starving for change, starving for something. Like the combine shouldn't matter that much. It really, really shouldn't. But oh man, does it. Yes, a lot. All those major milestones, find a way to do something about it. Try and I have the 104. I'll be willing to move down till like the 108, and you have all of a sudden you have a captive audience of the people who own the 5, 6, 7, 8, and just put something on there, give me this much and maybe this, and I'll take the best offer. There's a lot of things you can do that hopefully will grab someone's attention, because that's the problem, right? They're not paying attention. If they don't care,
you can't help.
Replace them. Like that's all you can do. Beg your commissioner to replace people, because while they're not bad managers because they set their lineups, they do waivers and all this stuff, there's more to that in Dynasty. Like it's a shame to have a league of Dynasty which there's supposed to be no off season and people check out for 8 months. Like that sucks. And again, like it feels crappy to say you should kick them out,
or don't kick them out. Just go yourself, try to find another league,
Yeah. If you like the league, stay in the league. If you like the league and you don't run it and there's nothing you do about it, stick in it and find another league, even if it's $25 safe leagues, which is a great place to go to find leagues, by the way.
My home Dynasty league is kind of a little bit like this, where we'll take months off of not having any action whatsoever. Like people, especially if you're in like a casual Dynasty league, people like to just not think about football for like 3 or 4 months after the season ends.
I don't even know what that means.
Because like they'll care about basketball, how basketball's going, or they'll care about baseball, and they're like, you know what, like I'll just catch up on football later on in the summer when it's fantasy football season. I have found though that in my home Dynasty league, while we take those months off, the rookie draft is oh my gosh, like that, like everybody just seems to wake up all of a sudden. They're like, I want these players, I want this player, I want that player, I need to move this player for a pick, I need to do that, vice versa. That happens a lot in the rookie draft in leading up to it in April, and then in May whenever we actually have it. And then the kind of the same thing happens again right before the NFL season, when people actually like look at their teams and they're like, wow, I have way too many wide receivers, I need a running back. And then they try to find that team that's in the opposite situation to see if you can make a trade or do something like that. So those are kind of the peak times in my league where we do that, which is probably going to be the base for every other league. Like at the minimum, you're going to get action at the rookie draft and right before the season. You might get some stuff from a couple managers might care for the combine or free agency, like you said, or training camp. News happens in training camp that you start making moves and stuff. But yeah, it is difficult. I would recommend, if you get bored of a league where there's not a lot of action, just go try to find a different league, because at the end of the day, if you have one league that has a lot of action and another league that doesn't have any action, you're basically in like one league in the off season. But you're just setting 2 lineups, if you're in 2 Dynasty leagues, you're just setting 2 instead of 1, which isn't all that bad.
All right. I'll put my last thought on here. And I feel like this always needs to be said. Don't feel bad about leaving leagues. People have this really weird feeling, and I used to have the exact same feeling. And it got even worse as time went on, because as time went on, I only played in leagues who were run by people I know and I like. Like, it's super weird, like telling the HQ guys that I needed to leave the listener league, where I was in the league when it first started. And it's, I'm like best friends with Shane and Sipes and Jeremy. And it's just like, sorry, fellas, I kind of need to drop out and back up. And they're like, okay, cool. And I'm like, oh man, I built that up like it was going to be a problem. And they're like, no. commissions don't care. Let's just say that, you know,
as long as you didn't melt your team, you know, and then just like, but
always don't be a jerk. Like, I asked Addison to be in the DLF league, and he's just like, nope. And I'm like, oh, okay, I'll remember this. But no, I was joking around, and he said no, and I don't care, you know. But like, leaving a league is absolutely fine. You need to do what's best for you, whether it's for money, whether it's for fun, whatever reason it is. If you want to leave a league, give notice. You know, don't do it the day before the season starts. Like right now, if you were to quit a league right now, they will be thankful you told them now, because there's still time before the rookie draft. They're just probably rolled their league over, in which case the new GM will have plenty of time to do whatever they want with their league. Team. That's the right word. So yeah, if you're, don't try and fix the league if it's not worth fixing, especially if you've tried and nothing happens. Just don't feel bad about leaving. And I almost used the word bailing, but that has a bad connotation to it. And I don't want to make you feel bad about wanting to leave, because you should never feel bad about it. You know, like, so just, if that's what you got to do, it's what you got to do. Always do what's best for you, because this is a game and it's supposed to be fun. On all that many notes that we just gave out, Russ Fisher, Dynasty Outhouse, Addison Hayes at AmazeHayes _ DLF Trade Show on the DLF YouTube channel. What do I usually say? See you next time. I'm so like beat after that rant that I don't even know what I say. Bye.